All right. So, welcome everybody to our Monday meditation session. Bhante, you think we can start? Or
Yes,
should
let's go.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think maybe, let's get everyone's minds to
Yep,
settle down. The snow shaker
yep,
effect. If we can, people have come from traffic, they've come from work maybe, 7 o'clock in the evening. There's still a lot, and people in any way in life can be going through a lot of mayhem, a lot of changes, invited and uninvited, unpredictable changes. So, should we have a meditation just to orient and get ourselves connected in body, spirit, and mind and grounded? How about that, everyone? So, would you like me to guide a breathing meditation and just settling down meditation?
that sounds like Bhante. And for those who don't know, Bhante Rakkhita Samanera is a very good Metta Center friend, and he's a dedicated meditation teacher with more than 40 years of experience, having born in the UK and ordained both in Thailand and Malaysia. He's traveled extensively and was for quite some time based in the Philippines. And so he supported the local people there in poverty zone village through fundraising, facilitated access to medical care, and then progressing to teach the Dhamma in the Philippines. So we're very fortunate to have Bhante here today. And today he'll be talking about the chill factor, thriving in the middle of mayhem. So over to you, Bhante.
Good. Thank you so much, Zen, and thank you so much, everybody, for taking the time and the privilege to attend the group meeting. And I'd really like us all to be in a spirit of community and a spirit of well-being. And so I think that also starts just by extending some warm care, compassionate calm towards yourself. Think of that first. Just no need also to try to attempt deep concentration straight off the bat. Is just consider your life circumstances, struggles that you're going with, and that can be from anything from your body shape to your car to your job to your home life to your identity to anything. So just give yourself some kindness, really. If you need to put your hand on your heart, once you settle down into that sense of let's be easier on ourselves, then we can start to be thoughtful about for other people. But feel your skin, feel your bones within your skin, and see how is there tension? Is it pulling in the past, dragging you in the future, sideways off into alternatives? Just experience the pressures. Feel your feet or legs on the ground or whatever you're sitting on. The breath comes by itself once we do that, or the attention to the breathing. So try not to be forcing or controlling, just be letting it happen. Feel how the muscles in your spine are doing. Say hi to your back of your shoulders and your neck. See how your head is sitting on your shoulders. Are you craning forward at the screen with your chin, or are you settling back nicely balanced over your pelvis? And don't forget, there's no wrong way to do this, and no one's judging you. You're not going to be given grades for meditation school. A lot about loving kindness to yourself is about letting it be. Giving yourself permission and realizing that you're not going to be punished or controlled or exposed. You're safe. and you're given unconditional acceptance. Whatever your story is, whatever your secrets are, whatever your deal is, it's okay. You're here, you're now. So really let everything settle down into the body, and also receive the earth under you up into your body. There's a lot of new beginnings built into life. There's a lot of chaos, a lot of mayhem. And there's so much change. And if it's not happening in us, it's happening in the people and the places around us. So resilience means having that bouncy, all-inclusive, whatever happens is fine, let it happen. Bouncy attitude. It's all okay. There's no way, we don't have to judge, is it right or wrong, or is it this or is it that, is it true, is it not true, and all. Okay, so we're going to be talking about that today. Fear, resistance. How rigid are we actually deep down? How much are we afraid? How much have we already experienced a lot of pain? And then we're nervous to bounce back, to get up, to try again, to start over. So be sympathy with each other, sympathetic to all of us, monks included. So remember that no one's exempt from this. We're all going through multiple out of control planets spinning in space with all kinds of things and rapid changes every week. Just look at the technology. It's just cavalcade and non-stop avalanche of things to roll with. So one of the best things that we can have is this ability to be able to roll and bounce and accept and not be too spiky, brittle, rigid. So this talk is going to really look at this. So if you have any questions that come up during this talk, please hold them or jot them down. And then once we're really done and you see the very end of the talk with the namaste, the end of the talk, then please float them up. You're going to see a very creative Dharma talk. My background is in animation, illustration, and that kind of stuff. I used to work for the Sydney Morning Herald one time. And so let it flow also. Also suspend your judgment. Being creative with something that's anchored in tradition is already ruffling feathers. We need to. We can't freeze and be rigid and afraid of what other people might say and rejection and all. So that's what the art of creativity is about. So allow this in yourself, allow your passion, allow your resourcefulness, your creative experimentation to reinvent, to try the new, to experiment, to borrow from here and there and remix. All of these are vital. And these are within the 4 steps of success, the Iddhipada the Buddha talked about. It's passion, chanda. Willpower is like try, because trying and trying and trying again and again and again and again is built into life. effort is in there. And creative resourcefulness. It's called vimamsa. And our meditation shouldn't be our stagnant comfort zone where we die inside and go to sleep. So we're trying to explore and feel our awakeness. And it's natural, especially in a city, to seek for interconnection of people and community like this, so we can all encourage each other. And the beauty of online meetings in our stressful, racing, time-driven world, it's very beautiful. We can come together with hearts and like mind, connect. Whatever we're going through, health, career, crisis, relationship stuff, financial stuff, living situation stuff, mental health, emotional stress, loss. There's 1,000 forms of suffering that we could personally be addressing right now. Identity crisis, career setbacks. There's a never-ending list. So again, compassion on our life, on the group. One of the most difficult things for our meditators today is holding attention. We're doom scrolling, we're Facebook, Instagram, messaging, WhatsApping, and Netflixing, and then working, and blah. Because of this, I've used a lot of creative technology today. I wondered why the Dharma talks weren't attracting me. And so I put my mind to it, and I tried to figure out why are the things interesting, and maybe we can borrow a few tricks from them. So suspend judgment and enjoy the show, because I've got something ready for you to make it a lot more interesting. So you won't go jumping off and watching Netflix on the side. You'll be gripped and entertained, but informed and educated and inspired as well, because we all know what it is like when we are trying to find calm and be chilled out in the middle of mayhem. Because I think we've all been there, and if we're not right now, we're probably not far away from someone who is. All right, so I think that we could go ahead with the main topic. So as you're pretty soon going to find out, it's not going to be your regular Dharma talk. I've done a lot of creative things. So as I said, please hold your questions and your responses until the end. And then we're going to have a good half an hour where we can throw the ball around and get stuck in if there's anything you want to bring up, or, you know, whatever you want to do. Okay, so if Zen, if we're all ready, let's try the impossible. Mission impossible coming right up. Okay, everyone, thank you for being together. Hey there, everyone. I'm Bhante Rakkhita Samanera. Pleased to meet you. And this is today's talk, where I'm going to be focusing on thriving amidst life's chaos with the chill factor. Thriving in the middle of mayhem. Now, this is more than survival. It's about finding ways to embrace the mayhem and emerge stronger. So we'll be exploring both the lessons and some reflective prompts that help guide us through this. A bit like stepping into a personal growth workshop. So let's dive into the first theme, and it's integrating new beginnings. You know, when they have a house and the decorators go in, and they call this fresh starts and do-overs. So this centers on the idea that new beginnings hold hidden opportunities. But here's the key. Our mindset determines how we perceive these moments. There's the trick. Imagine standing before a blank canvas or a blank wall. Do you feel excitement at the possibilities? Or does it seem daunting and scary to you? And this is the difference between viewing a new start as an opportunity or a threat. Our brains often alert us to potential danger in the unknown, thanks to the amygdala, the part of the brain that triggers the fight or flight response. The chill factor approach encourages us to recognize these fears, but not let them paralyze us. When we see that blank canvas, rather than bracing for danger, we can frame it as an invitation to experiment, to grow. So here's a practical prompt for you. Consider the new beginnings in your life. Ones you have right now. It could be a new job. It could be a recent move. It could be even a shift in your personal habits. Identify any fears that are holding you back. Are they fears of failure, of the unknown, fears of rejection, of what others might think? Remember, these fears are natural, but they don't need to control you. So how can we start to view these new beginnings as opportunities? It isn't always simple, but our thoughts play an empowering role in shaping our experience. Focusing on potential downsides can create self-fulfilling prophecy, whereas consciously looking at possibilities opens us to a world of opportunity. As Henry Ford famously said once, whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. Next time you're at a new beginning, try to cultivate an optimistic mindset. Moving forward, life isn't just about fresh starts. Change is a constant and often comes unexpectedly, which brings us to our second theme, coping with change. In this segment, which is entitled, When Life Throws Curveballs, we dive into the heart of adaptability. When I was at school, we had soccer, and frequently I was a goalkeeper. I really loved goalkeeping. But the amount of times someone would hit a ball in such a way that they were able to curve it, particularly with the British windy weather, that's a curveball. Cricket, and that is a rock hard, the ball. And often the ground in the summer is rock hard as well. So often the person throwing the ball, the bowler, would spin the ball. And as it hit the ground, it would come up at an unpredictable angle, often hitting you in the most uncomfortable of places without going into too much detail. And similarly, well, I was going to say rugby as well, but that ball doesn't really count as a ball, does it? So it's already a weird enough ball. But in the States, they have baseball. And again, a curveball comes from there. Even if you've got all the padding and the mask and the stuff, it can get pretty painful. So we all know that life is often bringing you these very unpredictable circumstances that could go this way, that way, or they're already coming in at a weird angle. We all know that life doesn't always follow our plans or expectations. Unexpected changes are really part of the journey. The difference between merely surviving and truly thriving lies in our ability to adapt and find opportunities within these changes. So how do we move from feeling kind of knocked down by life to rolling with its punches? So the first step is acceptance. Attempting to control every detail leads to stress and disappointment. So instead, focus on what you can control. I mean, your attitude for a start, your effort, and your responses to the challenges at hand. It's easy to talk about integrating change, but putting it into practice can be challenging. Many of us have clung tightly to plans. And then you just watch them unravel, leaving us feeling frustrated or defeated. It's a natural response. Our brains crave predictability and certainty, but the only true constant in life is change, anicca, vata sankhara. So rather than resisting it, what if we learn to embrace it? What if we saw change not as a threat, but as an invitation for growth and learning? That shift in perspective is empowering. But how do we actually make that mental shift? Especially when change feels sudden or scary. So here's a prompt to help. How can you turn life's curveballs into something positive? This isn't about pretending that everything is perfect. It's about acknowledging the challenge and asking, what can I learn from this?
Oh my God. You can learn. This is amazing.
And how can I use this experience to grow, particularly when they're so painful a lot of the time? So imagine a detour on your journey, not as a delay, but as an opportunity to explore new paths. Maybe that detour leads you to discover something unexpectedly meaningful. There's a saying, sometimes you have to get lost to find yourself. So these twists, these turns, they might be guiding us towards our true path. So if you're feeling stuck or disoriented, perhaps that curveball is nudging you towards a new direction. And speaking of bouncing back, let's move to our next theme, which is resilience. Thriving in mayhem often means learning to pick ourselves up and keep going. The analogy here is a bit like an action movie sequel with a section called
Bouncing Back, the sequel.
Think of it as the hero's journey, that in the first movie, our hero gets knocked down and faces challenges, but learns and grows.
Something is coming. Something big.
In the sequel, they come back even stronger, ready for a bigger battle. Each of us stars in our own resilience story.
One man. One decision. Critics are calling it sensational.
Every setback or challenge we face is just the first act of our comeback. But how can we ensure that our own sequel is even better than the original? So here's a thought-provoking prompt to consider. How can you turn a recent setback into Act 1 of your comeback story? And what lessons have you drawn from it? And how will you use those insights to shape the next chapter? So it's not about erasing the past or ignoring difficulties. Resilience means using our experiences as fuel for growth. Every scar we carry has a story, and each story makes us stronger. True resilience isn't about dodging difficulties. It's about building the inner strength to face them, learn from them, and come back even stronger. When we can view our struggles as stepping stones rather than obstacles, we develop a much, much more robust and enduring resilience. But let's address something that often stands in the way of resilience, change, and new beginnings. Our old adversary and greatest friend. So fear is what? Fear is often that uninvited guest who shows up when we're on the brink of something new and exciting. In this next segment, which I want to call
Don't Fear the Reaper of Change.
we're going to explore how fear and resistance arise in the face of transformation. While the title may sound light-hearted, it addresses a serious point. Change can be frightening, but facing it is key to growth. Even positive change can trigger anxiety because the unknown is unsettling, and our minds are wired to resist anything that seems risky. Our inner alarm system, it often sends signals of danger, even when the only threat is a new opportunity or stepping outside our comfort zone. So, how do we handle this fear of change? Should we ignore it or try to overcome it through sheer willpower? Neither approach is very effective. Ignoring fear often intensifies it, and fighting it can be just exhausting or even depressing. In the chill factor approach, we suggest reframing our relationship with fear. Rather than viewing it as an enemy, what if we tried to understand it? When we listen to our fears, we begin to address them more constructively. Fear is a natural part of the human experience, but it doesn't have to dictate our choices. The goal is to choose courage over comfort. Here's an empowering prompt for this section. What fear is holding you back? What fear is holding you back? Take a moment to reflect on the dreams and the goals that you've postponed because of fear. What opportunities have you missed because you were too afraid to take a chance? So let's pause. Let's think about those questions. Most of the answers lie between here and your knees. You'll feel all you need to learn about fear. As we move forward, let's keep exploring how to embrace and integrate change, build resilience, and face our fears with courage and openness. I'm going to change that because, I have a pet hate about the word embrace when it comes to change. It sounds really Victorian. You don't embrace change. You embrace puppies, teddy bears. Integrate. Let's keep exploring how to integrate change. See, it's more high tech, isn't it? It's got a bit more microcircuitry going on about it. Embracing Skegness comes to mind. Building resilience and face our fears with courage and openness. There you go. To take a moment, pause to breathe. Let's have a bit of that blank canvas that we all love and all hate. Now, with those reflections on fear in mind, or not in mind as the case may be, let's dive deeper into practical ways to not only manage the fear, but to harness it as a force for growth. We've talked about integrating new beginnings and adapting to change. And now we're getting into how to create new beginnings. And this brings us to a section called the awkward first step. What's this about? We'll think of a dance class. That first step has sheer terror involved. We all know this feeling. That initial hesitation before diving into something new, taking that first step can feel clumsy and uncertain. Like learning to ride a bike, a skateboard, or roller skates, or snowboarding. I went to the States, nearly broke my knees trying to move my feet for that first step. So there's wobbling, maybe even a few falls, but eventually we find our balance. When I was 18, I was once perilously late for work as a pump attendant. First jobs, we've all been there. I was at the swimming pool when I noticed the clock, and suddenly it was looking like 3 minutes to my afternoon shift start at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I lived across the park from a swimming pool. I raced home from the swimming pool and I was barefoot. And when I got home, there was my clothes in a pile, and in a clothes change mix-up at my parents' house. My mum said she was going to drive me in the car. I jumped in with all my things, still dressing, and I'd thrown my these suede boots in to the car. And as we arrived at the garage, I realized they weren't my boots. They were my friend's boots. And he wore boots that were like 4 sizes bigger than mine. So I arrived for work, clomping in through the door just in time. My boss looked at my huge shoes and he looked up at me and scowled away. Which is incidentally, clomping along like that in shoes that are 2 sizes too big feels kind of how your bones feel in your skin when you are starting to learn to dance at the age of 30, like I did. New beginnings often feel like wearing shoes that are several sizes too big. And the question is, how do we overcome that resistance and take the leap? So one approach is to break down big, intimidating goals into smaller, manageable steps. And rather than focusing on the entire journey, we just focus on the next foothold. Each step towards forwardness builds momentum. And before long, that first step doesn't seem so daunting. But what if that first step doesn't go smoothly? Well, sometimes we stumble right out of the gate, and that's okay. Resilience means recognizing that setbacks aren't failures. They're learning opportunities, adjusting our course, learning from missteps, and continuing forward is all part of the journey. Integrating the messiness of progress helps us to grow. So moving on to adaptability. It's not always about taking bold leaps. Sometimes it's about strategically navigating subtle shifts in life. Like a game made up of small chess moves. This brings us to change is the new black. So I'm going to use a fashion analogy to illustrate how change resembles ever-evolving trends. Just like fashion, if we cling to outdated ways of thinking or behaving, we end up feeling stuck or out of touch. So how can we develop this adaptability muscle? Here's a useful prompt. How can you try on a new style of thinking to cope with changes? Experiment with perspectives to see if a new way of thinking might suit you better. When change feels overwhelming, remember that adaptability, like style, is something that we can cultivate. Sometimes, though, change feels less like a stylish wardrobe update and more like a tidal wave. When those big, unexpected changes hit, we need resilience. This leads us to our next theme.
The comeback kid.
The section that taps into our inner strength to bounce back against all odds. Think of those classic underdog stories like Sylvester Stallone in Rocky II, or Sigourney Weaver as Ripley in Alien, Will Smith in The Pursuit of Happiness, Russell Crowe as Maximus in Gladiator, where no matter how tough things get, the hero finds a way to overcome. So the prompt there, it invites you to reflect on your own comeback story. What challenges have you overcome? What lessons did you learn? And how can you start writing the next chapter today? Recognizing and sharing our resilience stories can be incredibly empowering, actually. Not only for ourselves, but also for others who may be facing similar challenges. It builds a network of support, a community of underdog comeback kids lifting each other up, which helps us on to our next thing.
Fear. The uninvited guest.
So now let's return to that uninvited guest, fear, just like an unexpected visitor arriving at night, knocking on the door. It can catch us off guard, leaving us wondering, what are you doing here? While we've explored ways to reframe fear, there's also the question of preventing it from sabotaging our efforts to adapt and grow. Fear is pretty natural, but it doesn't have to control our lives. So how do we keep fear from, taking over rather than shutting it out? This approach suggests inviting fear in, giving it a cup of tea, having a conversation with it. By understanding our fears, we can address them constructively. Fear becomes a manageable, even a useful guest, instead of an unwelcome intruder. In this way, rather than letting fear crash the party, we turn it into an ally, learning from it without letting it dictate our choices. This shift makes room for courage, helping us face new beginnings, navigate change, and build resilience, while fear takes a back seat, quietly watching as we thrive amidst life's mayhem. Understanding fear's message is crucial. It's not about ignoring fear, and it's not about pretending it doesn't exist. It's about seeing its purpose and deciding how we respond to it. Fear can actually be a helpful guide, alerting us to potential dangers or areas of growth. But we have to remember that fear, it often stems from just our perceptions, not from reality. For example, consider fear of public speaking. The real problem isn't the fear itself, it's the beliefs we attach to it, thinking we're going to mess up. The people will judge us, or we'll be humiliated somehow. These are just thoughts and not facts. Let's have the courage to challenge those thoughts, examine the evidence, and reframe our perspective. Imagine viewing public speaking as an opportunity to connect with others, share ideas, and make an impact rather than as a threat. When fear gets and feels overwhelming, mindfulness is an empowering tool. Often our minds are flooded with worst case scenarios, making it hard to think straight. Mindfulness allows us to step back, observing these thoughts without judgment, and reconnect with the present moment. Recognizing fearful thoughts as simply thoughts, not reality, can help us create space between ourselves and those fears. And also, mindfulness can take many forms, from a deep breath or a few deep breaths to focusing on physical sensations or the sounds around us, your feet on the floor. The key is to find what works and make it a regular practice. In the midst of chaos, these moments of clarity can help us regain our footing. Begin again and again and again and again. Now, the idea of begin again, 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 and again speaks to the reality that integrating new beginnings and coping with change, building resilience, and facing our fears aren't just kind of one-time achievements that you've done it and you're done. They're ongoing processes. It's not about reaching a perfect kind of unshakable state where we never face setbacks or fear again. Instead, it's about recognizing that life itself is a journey filled with ups and downs, moments of triumph, moments of challenge. The key is to keep moving forward, keep learning, and keep growing. And above all, never give up on ourselves. Think of it this way. Each experience, whether positive or negative, can teach us something valuable. And a prompt here would help. So to encourage reflection on persistence. What's something that you've tried to start over and over again? And how can you be kinder to yourself in the process? What's something you've tried over and over again? And how can you be kinder to yourself in the process? Give me anything. Losing weight, learning a language, learning a musical instrument, communicating with a family member. Could be anything. You name it. Anything difficult. How can you be kinder to yourself? Not so harsh, not so judgmental. We're often our harshest critics, after all. We're quick to beat ourselves up over mistakes and to dwell on setbacks. But imagine if we offered ourselves the same compassion we'd give a friend. When we're kind to ourselves, we allow room for growth, for learning, and for trying again as many times as it takes to reach our goals. Now, as we wrap up this part of the exploration of the chill factor, I'd like to leave you with a few key takeaways and a challenge. These themes, integrating new beginnings, coping with change, building resilience, and facing our fears, interweave to create a tapestry of thriving amidst life's mayhem. This section will be called
Survival of the Chillest.
So let's look at one more perspective on integrating new beginnings. Something called survival of the chillest, which means new beginnings. They often bring excitement, also some stress. How do we stay calm when things feel new and intimidating? This section emphasizes that coping with change doesn't have to be a struggle. It's not about suppressing emotions, but finding that place of balance, that inner calm amidst the storm. Imagine a tree bending in the wind. It doesn't resist the storm's force. It adapts and it moves with it, and it survives. Here's a question to ponder. How can you practice staying calm and flexible in the midst of change? The mindfulness techniques, as we discussed earlier, they are invaluable here. They're creating mental space between ourselves and life's chaos. It allows us to observe our thoughts and feelings without being swept away. Sometimes surviving the chill means knowing when to step back, maybe delegate, or ask for help. Recognizing that we don't have to do it all ourselves, and letting go of control. It can be one of the most empowering ways to remain steady. Which takes us to our next title, The Bends and the Breaks. So now let's revisit resilience with the bends and the breaks analogy, where resilience is compared to a tree in a storm. Those trees that bend with the wind are much more likely to survive than those that remain rigid. Resilience isn't about being unbreakable. It's about being able to adapt and recover, like a willow tree swaying gracefully in the breeze, or a bamboo. So how do we develop this resilience? Well, one approach is to seek out role models who inspire us with their strength. Think of personal qualities of someone you admire about resilience. What is it about their story that resonates with you? Reflecting on their example creates a mental library of resilience role models. People who remind us that even in adversity, it's possible to bounce back, adapt, and grow. Here's a prompt for reflection. Who is your resilience role model? How can their experiences inspire your own journey? I remember when I was at school, when I was young, the headmaster told about Douglas Bader, who got his legs shot off in a Spitfire, and yet went on to be a very successful person and overcome that. And looking to those who have overcome adversity with strength can give us strength. Those who have overcome adversity with grace can give us grace. It reminds us that we don't have to face these challenges alone. Others have walked this path, and their stories can serve as our guides. Reflecting on these role models is like having a crowd of supporters encouraging us and reminding us that we're not alone. Even in chaos, we can find strength and support in others' experiences. While fear may feel overwhelming, like a lurking shadow, resilience is the courage to face it and grow stronger. And that's the essence of the chill factor. It's facing fear, adapting to change. Integrate new beginnings with courage and resilience. This section, I call this beyond the fridge. Now let's talk about facing those times when we feel stuck in a rut. Because change doesn't always feel like an exciting adventure. Sometimes it feels more like really hard work. How do we motivate ourselves to step out of comfort zones, accept and integrate new possibilities? That's where facing the stagnant fridge comes in. It's a metaphor for the situations where we've grown too comfortable, even when they're no longer fulfilling. Imagine opening your fridge to a waft of unpleasant smells. There's wilted lettuce, furry leftovers, and a science experiment growing in the back corner. You know it needs a deep clean, but the task just feels overwhelming. So you just keep shutting the door, hoping the problem will disappear. And this is how fear can keep us stuck, even when we know change is necessary. Instead of closing that door again, take a moment to reflect on any decisions you've been avoiding because of fear. How can you step out of that stagnant fridge and make the change and move forward? We can all relate to that feeling of stagnation, whether in our careers, stagnation in relationships, stagnation in our daily routines. Remember that fear, while sometimes protective, can also trap us in safe but limiting spaces, prisons. And the challenge is to recognize when fear has become a barrier instead of a protective boundary. So an empowering prompt here would be, what decision have you been avoiding because of fear? How can you step out of that stagnant fridge and make it happen? So it's about identifying what's keeping us stuck and taking steps to break free from self-imposed limits. Staying in unfulfilling situations may feel safer, but the rewards of stepping outside our comfort zones often outweigh the risks. When we challenge ourselves to try new things, we open ourselves to unexpected possibilities. Remember that integrating the journey's imperfections is a key to moving forward. Life isn't about avoiding challenges, but about meeting them with courage, curiosity, and resilience. So as you go forward, consider how these ideas can support you in facing whatever may come. And keep in mind that each step, no matter how small, is part of your journey in thriving amidst life's mayhem. We all have those tasks and decisions we keep tucked away because they seem just too difficult, too daunting. They sit in the back of our minds like leftovers in a fridge, unseen but not forgotten. So let's take this as a challenge to face those fears directly. Together we can ask ourselves, what's one decision I've been avoiding because of fear? How can I take even a small step towards tackling it? And sometimes the bravest thing we can do is to confront those uncomfortable things we've been avoiding. Because often the fear itself is far worse than the reality. And the rewards of facing it, they're immense. It's not just about reaching a specific goal or making a particular decision. It's about the empowerment that comes from knowing we're capable of stepping outside our comfort zones. It's about creating a life aligned with what we truly want. So, deep divers, we've officially reached the end of our exploration into the chill factor. We've unpacked empowering concepts and practical strategies for integrating change, building resilience, and confronting our fears. If there's one takeaway, it's this. While change and uncertainty are constants, we hold the power to choose how we respond. Our mindset, our attitude, and our willingness to embrace the chill factor determine whether we simply survive or truly thrive. As you go forward, remember these lessons. Embrace new beginnings, even if they're daunting. Strengthen your resilience because you're stronger than you realize. Face those fears head on, knowing that on the other side lies freedom and possibility. Until next time, stay curious, stay chill, and keep diving deep.
Okay, that was amazing. That was very, very creative. The most creative Dhamma talk that I've ever attended. So thank you so much for that.
Ridiculous. Send him off. He's not allowed to do any of that. Thank you. Enjoy it. This will be also, it will be available on YouTube. If somebody just said, what was that? You know, you can watch it again on YouTube. I'll upload it and you can have fun. Yeah, that was good.
That was heaps of fun, actually. And I've been taking notes along the way, and I really love your analogies and the questions, the prompts that you asked. I think they're really, really good, and just sort of looking and reflecting into ourselves.
Yeah.
As we go on this spiritual journey, this hero's quest, right? What sort of...
Yeah, it's often not qualified. People say anicca, impermanence, dukkha, but they don't actually say what you do with it. So I went quite a lot into that, and the prompts are really meant to sort of direct you to sort of question those things. We need a prompt sometimes, you know,
Yeah.
and not to get sidetracked by all the special effects, you know.
Yeah, and it's funny and uncanny because I'm just about to go on travels on retreat, and so I have to indeed clean my fridge. So I have to show the failed experiments hiding in the corner of my fridge, and
That'd be a great retreat. Get everybody to bring their fridge with them and then clean it in the hall. Great, thank you.
yeah,
Anyone?
and just on reflection, you know, it's something that we don't think about is, you know, what stuff have we been accumulating throughout our days of the week when we've been so busy and not mindful, what's really at the back of our fridge, like you said, the wilted lettuce, the furry food, the failed experiments. And there's good stuff inside, but how often we're so how do I say, oblivious to the things that are really needed to be cleaned out. Mold, Brooke said. And so, yeah. So there are some questions that are coming through. If I may, I could read them out to you.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody has asked, what can we do to have less fear according to the Buddha's teaching? And you've covered a little bit of that in the video. Would you like to add?
Is that the question? Was that?
Yes. What can we do to have less fear less fearful life, I guess, according to the Buddha's teaching?
Yeah, there were quite a lot of pointers in there. I think you can probably, go to the show note, review the video. I'm just sharing the link, but I don't see an everyone tag. I just see Meta Cam and all the names. I'm just trying to share the link to the YouTube of that, because
I think Annie shared it already.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because can you see that? Okay. So, but there's not one answer fits all, and everyone's fear is different. My fears are totally different to Zen's, and Zen's is really different to Brooke's, and Larissa's is not going to be the same as Jose's. So there isn't a one size fits all. That would be great if we go, there's the answer, like a fortune cookie, and we're done. So there are a lot of things pointed out. Having good role models, not bad role models, is very important. Some people love people who fight or drink or gamble or take high risks. So that's not a way to face your real fears. You might have a fear of rejection. You might have a fear of inadequacy. You might have a fear of failure. And there are many different remedies for each different thing. But a lot of it does start with listening to your body and recognizing it, not numbing and drowning, not numbing with workaholism, and not running away, not sleeping and eating it away, but also sort of firstly listening. 90% of the answers, you already have the answer. And we're drowning the answer. We're pushing away the answer. We're bluntly, not believing the answer. So a lot of the time it does start with listening into your body, into your throat, into your chest, into your shoulders, your neck, into your solar plexus and your kidneys and your stomach. It's a very big part of it. Listen to your whole body. And therefore you start to really, stop ignoring what you already know. So an internal locus of the solution rather than an external locus. It's super important. Even with role models. Role models are just, are a kind of way of support, a way of reflecting what our beliefs are. And then action. Well, reflection on action and then action. Don't just act. You can also cause a lot of trouble if you just go impulsively off. So you have to sort of have the prudence where you see, well, I could do this, could do that, could do this, could do this, could do that. I'll run these choices by myself. I'll also run them by a good friend. I'll also check against, do a reality check. And personally, I do a lot of talking with AI because it's getting better and better at human, solutions. And I find that particularly, it's a kind of way of reflecting on your own with an assistant who doesn't have a memory or anything. So fear, I think if you remember on a school playground, you have 100 kids in a school playground, you have 100 different fears, and we're all going through, our own virtue. So could you chip in anyone else who would like to contribute in about their opinion and their concepts and ideas there? I'd love to hear them. Go ahead. Please, just pipe up. Yeah, Simran, Prasad. Remember you from the last talk.
Yes,
Go on.
Bhante, and I wanted to say how much I appreciated the last talk, because when you were talking about how especially monastics tend to not be very active and live very sedentary, but that can be a hindrance, if you just sit there and meditate all day. And actually, it was since that talk that I've now started yoga, and I do it like multiple times a day, and it's really life-changing for me because I was like quite debilitated with my medical condition. So it's helping me to like be able to walk around more and things like that. So I wanted to acknowledge that. And regarding today's talk, I wanted to say about my fears. Like, I feel that this is pretty deep as well, but it's very related. I've been thinking for at least like the past few weeks, and that I'm really drawn to monastic life. But going from just like a regular person to exploring the idea of being a monastic is a huge leap. But it was something that was like sitting deep within me. And I remember a few days ago, like I just felt it, but I thought, oh, everybody's going to say this and that. And how can I leave my work? How can I do this? People think I'm crazy. And, it's just been boiling inside of me. And I realized that everything that you're talking about is so true, that I'm letting my fears of, the future and how it might play out stop me from even taking just that first step, like you said. So I think what you said is really practical, cool, just to focus on what's the next step. You don't have to like see it out because it's a whole journey and there's so many changes. I can't predict it all. So that's what I wanted to add.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you for contributing. So that, coping with, embracing, integrating new beginnings. So many, when you make a transition like that, and you don't have to be black and white. It doesn't have to be a huge leap. Like it said, it was really like, I was talking about subtle changes. You can go and sort of stay for the weekend, go and stay a week, see what it is, reality check it, and then see how do you cope with the changes that are actually presented, rather than just leaving it all to, whatever happens, I'll just roll with the punch when it happens. That's part of resilience as well, is being realistic with your limits. And then the fear and resistance part, I know, I've met thousands of people, I think we all have, who would have just benefited so much if they had made that break that they really internally wanted to do, but instead they've kind of devolved. And I include monastics who should have somehow moved on. When I was in the monastery for 3 years, 1986 to 1989, and I just knew at the end, I've got to make a change, and I don't know what it is. And then a couple came. He was American, she was Japanese, from Tokyo. And the guy went, it's very good here, but it's all theatre. And he was a movie director or a documentary director making a documentary, and he said, I'll fund you if you want to disrobe, I'll fund you, go and stay in our place in Tokyo, and we'll be leaving, but you can just do it. I don't, I'll support you. And I was like so that was it was the reverse of what you're talking about. I had to take the choice there. Shall I jump out of being a monk? What's that about? To Tokyo, I've never been to Japan, I've no idea what's going to happen. And so on. So, and then going back in again, from the UK in 2009, where I had a whole social network and several jobs on the go, and I went, okay, I'm just going to do a backflip here into being a monk again. And even when I'm a monk, it gets faster and more change. Like I said, I'm nomadic. This is not a real house. It is, but it's not here. That's a photo of it. I sometimes stay at it. I go all over, and I really don't know what I'm going to meet where I go. So it's not like monastic life is this cozy thing. Not at all. But the more you get into your truth, like in this talk, I was much referring to real experiences. When I worked in a service station, or that thing of the swimming pool event, and they're real. The more that you cling to monasteries, cling to teachings, cling to religions, cling to archaic traditions or something, you'll also become like a dead tree that will break in the wind. So, like I'm learning these things of digital art and Zoom and broadcasting and YouTube and all that. So again, you can find many monastics who are dead as a doornail internally. They're not growing at all, they're devolving. So we have to find that, how are we going to do that? How do we grow? So it's not about becoming in a monastery or not. It's about coming in your growth, in your curiosity. And well done for the yoga thing, by the way. Very happy to hear that. And that the blocks you go through in your body doing that, they really, really help. So don't become a sort of marshmallow meditator, fat and on the cushion, smug, and rolling out the cliches.
Bhante, it seems like your topic on fear has sort of triggered a lot of positive responses in terms of relevance. Somebody has mentioned that it's helped them reflect on the prevalence and the different phases of fear, and that person may have been dismissing it as something else. Somebody else has added that it's a very important topic. So another question has come up is sila or virtue helps with fear, but how can meditation help? So that's the question with regards to fear. How can meditation help?
But sila, what it says, so sila helps with fear,
Yeah.
but how can meditation help with fear? Is that it?
Yep, that's the question.
Well, developing the moment of the pause and the inner reflection time, firstly, to value that. When often under fear, we haven't got any time. We just need to do. But actually what we really do need to do sometimes is not do, and fill up our to-do list with, exhausting tasks, but is to listen in and recognize that, our neck is absolutely rock hard, our shoulders are locked tight, and we need to deal with that before we do anything else, including relating with our loved ones or our employer or our so on. That we have to listen to our body, and if we don't do that, we are likely, and your body can be telling you anything. You can be a monk and your body can be telling you disrobe, and it can be absolutely right. You can be in a toxic monastery, for example, or you can be in a toxic relationship and your body is saying get in the temple, it's safe, and it can be right. But if you're not listening to that, and that can be a 5-minute meditation where you hear it and it's true. So if you're meditating in a way as a drug addict, just trying to sensationalize or blunt or numb or sleep away your problems, then it's not going to be much help. It is going to be a help when you are able to hear what your whole nervous system, your whole wisdom, your whole compassion is saying to you. If it's saying stop drinking, your kids need you, that's what it's saying, then or stop stuffing yourself with food when you should be paying attention and doing half an hour of yoga instead. So meditation is cultivation. This was all about cultivating the ways to integrate new beginnings. So we're cultivating that. So it meant taking a step, like you said, like a step towards, say, yoga and fitness, rather than a step back to, staying unhealthy and not addressing what needs to be done. And then meditation definitely helps you cope with change. Often we get in a little loop of comfort zone, stagnant relationships and habits, and this, and that can be anything. It can be gambling, it can be porn, it can be just wasting time or oversleeping or being stuck in the wrong job. But it can be just a loop, and it's preventing us from opening to what's beyond the horizons. Often when you meditate, you'll suddenly get free from that comfort zone and go, yeah, I could go to a different country. I could leave my job. I could start that, writing that book. I could. So sometimes you see possibilities that only happen when you let go of your habitual little patterns that aren't working. So that's the resilience part. And also sometimes we're not resilient and we're still crumpled from a previous burglary, rape, or crashed relationship, or insult, or sort of something that went really kind of wrong, in the past, and we're still crumpled from it. We actually haven't bounced back. And when you meditate, you start to feel those armor in the body and start to recognize, oh yeah, I still haven't really dealt with that. I haven't learned my lesson from it yet. I still haven't changed my attitude. I still hate that person with a vengeance. I still want revenge. I still hate myself. I still haven't sort of succeeded to do the achievement that I really set out to do, and I haven't forgiven myself, or I still haven't made that bridge in communication that I should have done. 1,000 different examples. But when you meditate, you can't ignore the truth. And that's a sort of, what your body and mind connection, the more that you are with it, and you're not living a kind of disconnect, the more that you're listening to that, your truth will start to emerge, and that can be what that results in. 1,000 people, 1,000 results. But anchoring through the breathing, or through the present moment, or through mindfulness, which is not blocking out with a mantra or a droning on. It's listening first of all and getting yourself out the way. Then you can hear your truths start to come through. That was a long answer.
No, that's a great answer, Bhante, and I really appreciate the fact that you emphasize, truth and honesty in the present moment as you meditate, is being in tune with the reality. A lot of the times when we meditate, we want to block out, like you mentioned, and I guess that's what they call spiritual bypassing. Wanting to...
I've heard that phrase is very popular in Australia. I don't like it. People brought it up at the NANTM meetings. I was like, hold on, that's even the word spiritual is a bit foggy what that means. But bypassing, it's borrowed from surgery and stuff. I'm not even sure I understand it. I didn't want to interrupt. I just want to say that if our meditation is a method of avoiding, if it's blocking with a should do, I should I should say ETP, so about that's what should be happening in my head, you're not meditating. So getting to your truth, and that can be vague, foggy, ugly, trauma can be coming up, you can just be sitting with confusion, fine. That's actually what's really there. So once you recognize that, and then start to let the fog sort of settle, and like you regain your body, it can sometimes feel like it's getting worse before it's getting better. And that's often a common sign of progress, like in therapy, where, rage, depression, anxiety. So, like a lot of us have anxiety, and even I get anxiety still, to the point of vomiting. But it's important that I understand, okay, and this is normal. Maybe my granddad did the same thing, and he never told us, So it can just be like that. Is that your real truths are often buried in your genes and in your cells, in your bones, but you have to be with that for a while without imposing judgment or should do's on top of it. And bare awareness or insight or body awareness, that's one of the most direct routes to be able to observe it without judgment, awareness of feelings, awareness of tension. And honouring the time, that you need to set time to do that. But the more responsive you are to your wisdom, the less you have to sit for weeks or hours or days or stuff. Sometimes if you just get the answer very quick and respond, by yourself, you don't have to do a lot of that stuff. But if it's going to take you 6 months to admit you're gay, or to, phone your dad and tell him this, it might take 6 months. But if it takes you 6 seconds and you go, okay, and then you just move on with your life, you got what was necessary, and you don't have to take the rest of the time. With all respect.
Yep. Makes sense. Bhante, I'm noting the time. Do you have time for one more question? And those who have to go can drop off. Yeah. Okay.
I'm good. Go ahead. What's that question?
Yeah. Okay. This person asked 2 questions, but I'll pick one in the interest of time. My apologies. They asked, when you mentioned about using meditations to seek answers, is this about consciously asking a question before meditation? And how do you know for sure you've got the answer? Is it a strong knowing or a feeling?
I mean, I gave those prompts, which the idea of the prompts is to help you gather your psychic direction of your mind into a direction. You know, we brought up the subjects like fear, and then I was giving these responses to try to channel your thinking in a certain way, to wonder, you know, what am I afraid of, or what fear has been stopping me. But that's not what I do in meditation at all. No, in meditation, it's very much more leaving an empty space, a blank canvas, for what's there to sort of float through. And I don't tend to probe and so on. And it's not like cognitive behavioral therapy or something where you're sort of barging in with thoughts. But, you know, a well-directed mind is one of the aims. But what that, like if you find that you're spiraling and circling in nostalgia, oh, what if I'd married such and such, you know, or what if, you know, that job, if I'd never left, or nah. So if you catch that, then that's spiraling, you know, thinking, then detaching off, centering, staying with the present moment, and being able to sort of more intuitively do that. So sometimes there's an element of questioning, or you find that a really brilliant question just pops in your mind, a really helpful one. And, you know, this can be devas even. If you're really like lost, sometimes, you know, I'll meditate and I'll just ask the universe for help. And what might come through is like, well, go look at this on the internet. And all right, I will. Wow, look at that. I haven't thought of that before. Is that sometimes making yourself receptive in that kind of way, the wisdom part of it, and it can be the wisdom of the universe, it can be divine grace, can arise in your mind, and that if you're unavailable, you won't hear it. So sometimes it will give you a question, and sometimes it will give you an answer. I was dealing with an extremely dominant woman in Malaysia, and I gave up. I thought, I've got to leave. I've got to move. I've been here for 8 months, but I've got to get out of here. I can't handle this sort of energy. I went to meditate on it, and I said, look, universe, if you've got any ideas, just give me some help. And then it basically popped into my mind, have you ever looked at Queen Victoria's photo recently? And I was like, what? And I looked at Queen Victoria's picture. She was identical with this woman, literally identical, double of. And I was like, my God, I think I've got a reincarnation of Queen Victoria staying here. And I wouldn't be surprised, you know, the way that it was going on. And I told her that eventually. And she said the earliest memory was standing on her bed and telling, with her hand up and telling her mother, like, I am a queen, like this. So it's possible that that could be, I don't know, maybe I've got a past life, you know, with some sort of, you know, maybe I was a governor in Penang or something in a past life. And so questions, you know, there are unskillful questions like, who am I? Where did I come from? Is the universe infinite? Is it not? How has the universe started? Questions that will go on and on and on and on and on and on. So they will lead to that papanja, you know, this proliferating, you know, snowstorm of ideas that you'll never get to the end of. So those are unskillful questions. There's a list of 16 of those. You know, what was I in the past? What will I be in the future? Who am I really? You know, am I really, you know, such and such? Am I that? Am I this? Those are unskillful kinds of questions. So if you could dwell on those for 10 years, and you'll still be just as going around in circles as now. So there are skillful questions and unskillful questions. Venerable Thanissaro has even written a book on the subject of skillful questions. If you really want to go into that more deeply, and you've got time for a kind of 350-page formal, you won't get many special effects and jazz. I'll tell you that much. All right.
And speaking of Ajahn Thanissaro, he's actually coming to Sydney, and so we at Metta Center are hosting him in 2 weeks' time, actually. So we're very fortunate. Well, I think we've come to the end of our. And Brooke has kindly done a little poster, which I'm just gonna flash up onto my screen. So thank you, Brooke. So I think we've come to the end of our session, and it's been an amazing journey. I think we can all speak for on this truth that it's quite a creative Dhamma talk, and I think I've taken many notes and a lot of takeaways and so many quotable quotes, Bhante. I'll thank you so much, and thank you. Yes, thank you for all the effort that you put in. It really shows, and hopefully everybody's taken something that they could implement back into their daily lives. A lot of thank yous coming through the chat, Bhante. If I could invite you for a closing prayer or a sharing of merits.
Sure, we'll do that.
Thank you.
Bhavatu Sapa Mangalang Rakantu Sapa Devata Sapa Buddha Nupavena Sada Soti Bhavantu Te Bhavatu Sapa Mangalang Rakantu Sapa Devata Sapa Dhamma Nupavena Sada Soti Bhavantu Te Bhavatu Sapa Mangalang Rakantu Sapa Devata Sapa Sangha Nupavena Sada Soti Bhavantu Te Sabitio Vivachandu Sabaroko Vanasatu Mate Pawatwantarayu Sukidika Yuko Bhava Abhiwadana Silisa Nichang Uta Pachayino Jataro Dhamma Vadanti Ayuano Sukhang Balang Sadhu 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 Sukhi Hontu. Thank you very much to the Metta Center for inviting me and hosting the talk. Thank you, Zen. Thank you, Tina, and thank you, Sin, for all that. And thank you so much, everyone who attended, or everyone who's on the chat. I really appreciated your presence.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, everybody. Hope you have a good evening. Take care.
Bye now.